So I need to understand here that I want you to believe me when I say that there's been a great deal of investigation on my end where I have been able to show that the police in this city are completely compromised. The special investigation units were here and have basically documented a number of police officers who have falsified information in order to get their neighbor removed or criminalized just out of sheer dislike. And to see the incredible efforts here to protect officers that were raping women in this city, who were now let go as of December. There's a number of officers who have falsified information and have cheated their ways through their police foundations, meaning there are some police here who never even went to their police foundations and have been getting their certificates forged by someone in the city. I believe that that is extremely visible when they have apprehended me. Every single time they have apprehended me, it has never followed protocol. They do not know their sentences, as in their maximums or minimums for certain crimes. They do not know their criminal code. They do not know the procedures of a disclosure. They do not understand that the proceeds of court and how that is supposed to go through and what their obligations are. And so in my own witness and what I've recorded, it's been substantial enough to make sure that there are body cameras installed on every single one of them. So I've done that. And there's been an intense investigation into this situation. The courts in this office have been compromised as well. I've been able to prove that through the Illegal Mental Health Act abuse and the substantial efforts to protect my abusers in face of clearly textbook case submission from me. I submitted the same MHA with IPA for the person that was abusing me, showing that, she was clearly uncontrollable and had all the efforts from me to ensure voluntary options that were regarded as unnecessary, and so which I was a perfect example of someone who required involuntary psychiatric assessment, and yet the police and authorities here have failed to do so. They basically used the fact that it wasn't on a particular form, and I put it on the form, and they still didn't apprehend her. So it's just been this constant superficial behavior of using whatever they want to deny people justice and then favor their abusers and continuously allow the disruption to happen. Now, I've been able to get a change of venue. So we've got the criminal crown attorney, Mr. McMahon, Justice McMahon, who's out of North Bay. He was able to get my change of venue, but gave it over to Justice Taluzzi, who is married to a Trudeau, which is a clear conflict of interest. The family line there is interesting because even though it was a native from the same Manitoulin Island as the woman whom is abusing me, where her late ex is from. And so the Eshkabak family that's passed, Isaac is his name, was from this reserve where I received a judge from on my change of venue, which is a clear conflict of interest and definitely unacceptable. Even though she is a native judge, I was so proud to have that. She has failed to proceed with the direct evidence that I've provided since December 26th. And in spite, I received a confirmation and an approval of that private prosecution, but yet it has been stalled, showing a complete disregard for my safety and a disregard for justice. Since then, I've been unlawfully charged with criminal harassment for screaming for help after I did a Bayesian model, which is a forensic it's a very high risk model where I take probabilities and numbers from statistics and determined a 99.99% probability that we're seeing homicidal behavior, especially serial homicidal behavior. And that it must be regarded as extremely important. And yet the police here refused to witness that evidence and decided to label me as criminal harassment for screaming for help in spite of the physical evidence that I provided of me being chased out of my house that day, and the clear contradictions of someone who is trying to claim criminal harassment, which means that I would have to make them feel afraid, and yet she would send her 15-year-old son to throw snow on my help sign. So having said all of that, it's a clear contradiction of that. I was then charged with criminal harassment and a breach of that order when I contacted a well-known native in this area who I was told by the name of Kiki, and I did not understand any relationship whatsoever to the accused. But yet, even so, to contact a well-known figure in this city for handling obstructions to justice and unfair due process, for me to contact her is normal, and that was advice given to me by somebody else. Call Kiki. That was the one to call. So I did, and then I was breach of my stay for that for some reason. They believed that the person who I'm accusing of harm and the criminal harassment charges against this one group of people, those 4 names that were on that list of documents that was in my criminal harassment charge are not in, Kiki was not in that list. And so they have basically assumed ownership of anyone in the city for whom could possibly help me. Having said that, it was very alarming to me because I contacted a sergeant. I had them review that. They all seem to leave without wanting to witness evidence. They make blatant statements, refuse witness. I've still not given a disposition. And then again, the night before my court case, they attempted to arrest me. And then again, before I was about to file my writ of mandamus, they arrested me unlawfully through entrapment, meaning I called them for a service to let them know about my phone being drained. And I asked them to report this incredible danger that may put a lot of others at risk. And they refused to take that evidence and instead promised me that I was going to be safe to open my door. So I did, at which point they apprehended me, and that was entrapment. They made me feel safe. It was no call to my house other than to report my crimes that I wanted to have listed. And it was entrapment. That was entrapment. I've lost my voice now because of this screaming for help. I had a nervous breakdown in the back of the truck, at which point they took me to the hospital, at which point there was considerable abuse taking place in the hospital, at which point somebody in that room went to another floor and notified their colleague, at which point somebody came down from a different department to take over the psych ward's management of me and kept the door open and maintained my sanity throughout that process and kept me safe. I was out by 1 p.m. There is a lot of effort to falsify information, to not witness evidence, and quite frankly, there was a ton of arrests that happened in this area in Northern Ontario against the Hells Angels. Now, I'm going to let you know that there were considerable efforts to try and stop the falsified information. The Hells Angels were trying to prevent this. They have left because of the dirty cops that have come into the city, which I've now proven to be dirty. They are good people. The Hells Angels have always worked with police, quite frankly. They've always been, there's always been a code of conduct and a truce. So I was very alarmed because, my family is definitely a part of them. Garrison is a name well known amongst the Hells Angels up here. And when I mentioned that name, no one clearly knew it. So I was kind of under suspicion, especially when I've never seen any of them on bikes. I've never seen so many of them divided. Usually they come in together and they're not seen going around by themselves. And there's a woman leading one of the chapters up here, which gives me a presumption that that's just another scapegoat for them. I don't believe that she's in that position for any other reason other than the fact that if something goes wrong, she'll be the one to go down. And so that's not a brotherhood. That's not the Hells Angels. There's a lot of people up here in Northern Ontario that are claiming to be from Hells Angels. And it's alarming that a number of Facebook groups have also now changed their name from Hells Angels to this outlaw. Now, I want to make sure that these people understand that now that I've made sure to prove that the police up here have compromised, there's going to be a number of people that are going to receive reports. I believe that they are working to now have some crimes overturned based on the dirty cop scenario. And I hope that a lot of Hells Angels get their justice. I think a lot of them suffered a great deal. I think a lot of them were arrested unlawfully. I think a lot of them were not doing crimes that they were accused of. And I'm hoping that that can be protected. I know that as somebody who's grown up with them, they've always been extremely lawful, and they've only ever been a danger to opposing criminals that are really the bad guys. And so when these child pedophiles moved in the 90s, because in the 90s there was a huge witch hunt in America, and they moved here. And so they couldn't continue operations with the Hells Angels present, so they found a way to infiltrate the police, which Hells Angels never do. They don't do that. They work with them. They don't kill off cops or make their lives difficult and infiltrate. With that being said, the efforts by the Child Ring to destabilize the Hells Angels happened. The people who disabled them and forced them out of the area, they have not operated in this area for a long time, and that is specifically because they were lawfully charged and they couldn't protect themselves from these indictments that were happening under false pretenses. So I will say we're working together, all of us, the good people in this city that want their city back. I know that there's people in the States that have left this area and want to come back. I know that there's people who are very angry, who have tried to clean up the city themselves and have lost loved ones to the crimes here. And this isn't just dirty police. This is people have been killed and covered up as well. And so I just want to say that, now is the time to choose a side. Now is the best time, if you've been reluctant in any way to pick a side to be on, now is the time to do it. I've made sure that the protections for me have been clearly illustrated. The writ of mandamus has ordered protection and has also ordered protection against any falsified statements made by any member of the church. I've asked for religious freedoms to be revoked, that my treaty definitely trumps that, and that it's no way in hell should I be allowed to have any of my life decided over someone who's a well-known abuser, and that would be anyone affiliated to the church. So any Jehovah's Witness, any Jesuit, any churchgoer, any God-fearing member of society, whether you're native or not, should not have any decisive power over my life, because they are the ones who have historically pushed us into the Trail of Tears. They are part of the residential schools, and it would be a mistrial of justice and a miscarriage of justice and a complete perversion of justice should you allow my abusers to hear my case, to decide over my case, or to even come near my case, which is unprecedented. I believe that I've been able to shake the city to the core. I'm here to state that I want people's justice to be heard. I want voices to be lifted. I want stories to be lifted. And I want people who are unlawfully criminalized to be protected from this. I think that investigations into the police need to go back far and wide. I think that there's a great deal of evidence of this takeover since the 90s. I've done my investigation. I've asked locals. I've asked when it got to be a place where they could no longer feel safe. And they all have said the 90s. And so it's been a lineup of people who all agree with the same information, and we need to investigate because this is the same time that these witch hunts were going on in the 90s for these pedophiles, and this has now become a huge globalized pedophile ring where kids are being smuggled, and it's only gotten worse, and this has to improve. And there's nowhere. This is right before my court date. People were running around on this roof